an amazing fireside chat lined up for you. Please join me in welcoming the CEO of Kabam, Chou. And with him, Douglas McMillan from Bloomberg News. Thank you. Great, welcome.
Hello, hi, thanks for joining us. I'm very excited to welcome Chou, the CEO of social gaming company Kabam. In a year when Zynga, the social gaming leader, has had some struggles, Kabam has expanded. The company is on track to do more than $150 million in revenue this year. Its hit game, Kingdoms of Camelot, is one of the highest grossing games in the iPhone App Store this year. And a company that started on Facebook, mostly Facebook social gaming, has over the past year migrated to mobile and other platforms very successfully. Now, just under 30% of the company is actually on Facebook. The rest is on other platforms. So Kevin, I'd like to start off. You went into social gaming in about 2009. What was your vision? What opportunity did you see in social gaming?
Sure. So 2009 was the beginning of free-to-play games in the Western market, specifically America. And I was really excited about the promise of a better consumer experience where players can start playing a game for free and see if they like it or not, and then pay into it after they get value out of playing a game and after they're entertained. And so it kind of flipped the model on its head. It was not so much, I watch a sexy commercial about how great the new Call of Duty is, and then I go out and I pay $60, and I hope I really like what I get. Now it's kind of flips the model around. You can, through a PC back then, through a browser, you can access these games on Facebook and start playing them for free within a few seconds of seeing it. See which one of these games your friends are playing, join them in playing it, and then pay afterwards, pay as you go along.
And this is a very common, widespread model now. Back in 2009, it was relatively new for this market.
That's right, that's right. And that's still considered to be relatively new. And especially what we first started in 2009, we focused on what we thought of as core gamers. So people who are game enthusiasts that own console games or consoles, play console games and PC games. We really wanted to make a very different type of experience than the casual games that were really dominating Facebook.
So let's talk about that. The typical Zynga customer, Zynga player, is not an avid, hardcore gamer. They weren't playing the Xboxes and PlayStations before. Your customers are, your users are. Can you tell us about who is playing Kabam games these days?
Sure. So generally, we have a pretty broad target because we try to make our games as accessible as possible across as many different devices. And so we look for consumers, generally speaking, who are a little bit more male skewing. About 60% of our audience is males, and they're between the ages of 18 to 55.
Mm-hmm. What's different when you're thinking about this audience and creating a game for them? How do you develop for that specific audience?
Sure. So I think when we think about gaming, it's a combination of art and science. And so it has to start with the creative aspect first. And in 2009, we were thinking about what could we do within a browser. And back then, Flash gaming was really just starting. Flash and using Flash for making games was just starting to become a little bit more mature from a technology standpoint. Mm-hmm. And so we were thinking about what kind of a game could we create with the technology limitations we had back then. And so we really focused on strategy games and empire building games as the first game that we came out with, which became Kingdoms of Camelot. And so Kingdoms of Camelot doesn't have a whole lot of fancy animations or high fidelity battle scenes and things like that, but we really focused on creating a really strong, engaging gameplay, and we made it very competitive. We made it an experience that you could play for 2 to 3 hours at a time, as opposed to the casual games, which you really felt like you were sort of barred or prohibited from going any further in the game after playing about 15 minutes because you would run out of the energy. Run out of energy, which became one of the kind of widespread game mechanics that the casual gaming companies
And
used.
does it cost a little bit more to invest in these games and develop these kind of more robust games?
That's right. So it costs more to develop these from from an R&D perspective, absolutely. Mm-hmm. But I think one of the things that probably drives up game development costs more than anything else is the fidelity of the game experience. And so going into 3D, for example, is moving up development costs across the board. And as we go into mobile, specifically tablets as well as smartphones, with the power, the processing power and the graphics processing power of these new devices, we can really create much higher fidelity games. So that will drive up costs a little bit more. But the whole point is that these games, Kingdoms of Camelot has now run for 3 full years, and we have a larger team working on that game than what we did when we launched that game. And so we're constantly producing new content, new features, new events in these games, and they can be, we basically spread out the total development costs over a much longer period of time, and we basically match the revenues with the costs over time. So it's a much more efficient model.
Let's talk about mobile, because this is increasingly the battleground for social gaming. We've seen, one of the early social gaming companies, Crowdstar, has shifted completely to mobile. We've seen Zynga over the past year really have some struggles in mobile and talk about very publicly about how they are shifting a lot of their emphasis towards mobile. What's your mobile strategy, and how's it going so far?
Sure, so we started developing mobile games last year, and we launched our very first mobile game in the spring of this year. So it's only been about 7 months since our first mobile game came to market, and we've just been blown away by some of the things that we see on mobile. So some of the things that I think happen on mobile is that people have these devices with them all the time, and so the retention rates across games are, generally speaking, much better than what we would see on the web. And then secondarily, because of the way that consumers are putting their credit cards into iTunes, and more consumers are using Google Wallet and using Google Wallet for a number of things, and are using that as a payment option, it's easier to get consumers to pay for virtual goods within games. So that's been very exciting. So you see both kind of a retention lift as well as a monetization ease of purchase on mobile.
I don't think everyone's saying this yet. You're seeing a higher ARPU for revenue per user on mobile than you are on Facebook?
We haven't said that specifically, but we are saying that we're very excited about some of the things that we're seeing. So what we have said is that conversion rates on mobile tend to be better than what we see on the web.
Okay. Going back to Facebook, where you guys started, in comparison to mobile, a lot of folks in the industry are saying that there are some challenges in Facebook, that maybe the growth is slowing down significantly in mobile. Maybe this is in Facebook. Maybe this is a saturated market. Facebook. Where do you see Facebook and social gaming going forward, and what do you think Facebook needs to do to keep this a healthy, viable market?
Sure. So this is a very deep topic. I'd love to talk about this. I think Facebook, if you take a look at Facebook's business in Q2 of this year, they reported $192 million of Facebook credits revenue. If you kind of back that out, they're taking 30% of the transactions. So that means about a $2.5 billion market on Facebook as a platform for games, which is the primary driver of revenues. Now, that only happens on the web. They do not take any Facebook credits revenue on mobile. And when Facebook talks about their numbers, you can now see that their total DAU count is higher on mobile than it is on the web, and they're making no credits revenue on mobile. And one of the reasons why they're having, from a broad macro level, is that Apple and Google control the app stores and the payment mechanisms on their hardware and platforms. And so Facebook can't, right now there's no gaming company is paying Facebook credits revenue on mobile. And so,
because you'd have to charge 2 taxes. You'd have to charge 30% to Facebook and 30% to Apple.
That's right. So Facebook doesn't really try to do that yet. Facebook is still struggling overall to figure out how to monetize mobile, and they're really starting to focus on advertising and creating a really powerful ad network that takes all the information that they know about consumers and helps them find applications. So that's being successful, but they don't have a way yet to be successful making credits revenue on mobile. I think the whole ecosystem would love more ways, more platforms, I should say, to enable app developers to be successful on mobile. So today, it's really, that world is being dominated by Apple. Google is becoming a very viable platform for app developers. Amazon is starting to enter with their second generation of Kindle for app developers. So all of that's very exciting, but Facebook is really blocked from being in the mobile application platform business today. And I think so that's kind of one of the challenges that they face. And as an app developer, as a game developer, when we first started our life, we started with 100% of our business on Facebook. And then we looked around and said, you know what, more and more consumers are starting to play games on their phones and their tablets, and we need to make sure that our products work on those things, and we can't reach those consumers through Facebook itself.
Sure.
And so we started that diversification about 18 months ago. And today, more than any other gaming company, we've really broadened our diversity of platforms and our revenues. As you noted, over 70% of our revenues today are off of Facebook, which is tremendous given that just 18 months ago, 100% of our revenues were on Facebook.
One move Facebook has made recently, and Mark Zuckerberg was pretty public about this in his appearance a month ago, is that they have moved away from HTML5, a technology that Facebook was very public about betting on and saying this is the future, earlier this year even, about HTML5, Facebook has moved back towards the direction of native, and they've redone their mobile app, all native, and backed away from HTML5. What do you see as the difference between HTML5 and native going forward? Is HTML5 technology that game makers should not bet on anymore?
Sure, so let me talk about, there's two different parts of this topic of HTML5 versus native. The first is from a game developer standpoint. If you're a game developer, there's no doubt that native applications is the right way to go to market today. So the performance that you can get from HTML5 in terms of making a game is just not appropriate today for making a game. Even the casual game developers are really moving away from HTML5. And certainly if you're looking to create a higher fidelity experience, there's really no game developer doing that in HTML5. So that's from a game development standpoint. Definitely native or some of the cross-platform technologies that are coming to market, Unity and a few others, are great platforms to develop native, great tool sets to develop native applications on. Now, from Facebook's standpoint, they offer they're not in the business of making games. They're making a platform service for consumers. And I think, as a game developer, I would have loved for whether it's Facebook or some other big internet company to really push HTML5 development forward and open up browser-based usage of the mobile internet. So that would allow game developers to eventually reach consumers more directly over time and not be totally constrained to going through Apple or Google's app stores to get our games distributed to the marketplace. And as we just talked about with Facebook's tax, as they are an application developer themselves, if they were to try to get into the mobile game publishing business, they would have to pay a 30%. They'd have to figure out how to take a tax on top of either Apple or Google's tax.
Right.
But if they could really push forward the mobile web, then they can really start becoming more of a platform for being a gateway to games, much like they did with their canvas on the broader internet.
Who do you, back to the kind of mobile platforms, who do you see as being the number 3 mobile platform in the next few years? You got Apple and Google. Who's going to emerge as the number 3 player here?
Sure. So I think my guess would be Amazon. So there's a lot of excitement from app developers around Amazon. Some of that has been more tempered in the recent past. Some of the game companies have said, Amazon's great. You can make a lot more revenue per user on Amazon because of the great payment methods that Amazon has pioneered, as well as the confidence in Amazon as a system. But the numbers are small. And so the original Kindle that started selling, the Kindle Fire, I should say, that started selling last Christmas, there's a relatively smaller install base there. But I think this Christmas season, you're going to see a lot more Kindle Fires in the marketplace, which makes it a lot more interesting for app developers.
Do you have any titles for Kindle Fire?
Not yet in the market.
Okay. Can we look for that sometime soon?
Probably.
We're almost in 2013. Next year, what is going to separate the winners from the losers in social gaming in 2013?
So in 2013, I think the market is going to be enter into a more competitive kind of phase in its life cycle. A little bit like what we saw on Facebook, probably starting in 2010, early 2011. So what's already starting to happen is that customer acquisition rates are going up. So it's harder to buy media and basically pay for customers and get them into a game experience. And so you really have to focus on understanding how to reach consumers, whether it be through paid customer acquisition or community building or social features within your game. So that's going to become a little bit more important. Second, so understanding distribution and marketing. The second thing that's going to become more important is the fidelity of these games are going up. There's going to be more genres of games. So really in the last 4-ish years on smartphones and mobile, simulation games have kind of dominated, or very more simplistic kind of game mechanics, a little bit like what we saw on Facebook back in sort of 2009. And these days, I think there's going to be, going into 2013, there's going to be more parity from Facebook to mobile in terms of the fidelity of games, the complexity and sophistication of the content and game mechanics that are being built.
So I understand we have a number of developers in the audience. Do you have any advice for young developers getting into the space in social gaming?
I think there's a humongous amount of opportunity. The growth of smartphones continues unabated, both in developed markets as well as emerging markets. And so I think if you're an app developer today looking to get into the market, there's so many different opportunities. And I think it's, instead of trying to serve everyone in the marketplace, because the marketplace is very, very big, really think about a target audience that you want to serve and think about serving that audience really well. And some of the areas that I would probably point out is some international markets are really, really interesting, and there's not a whole lot of game developers focused on other markets outside of the key Western developed markets, and so there's a lot of opportunities in emerging markets. And there's opportunities in new genres of games that really haven't been as successful before, but now that there is just this large number of people and rapidly growing people, you can make more niche type of game experiences and find that audience and really serve that audience well.
Great. Great. Kevin, thank you for joining us. Thank you
you
for everyone for joining us.